A terrifying New Year's Eve encounter. I'd like to preface this by saying I live a pretty straight-edge lifestyle, so I'm certain that what I saw and heard last New Year's Eve wasn't the result of a hallucination or drunken stupor. It was 100% real. I live on the outskirts of a small southern town, and one of my closest friends, Darren, lives in a wealthy neighborhood deep in the boonies. Every year, his family throws a New Year's Eve party, and I always look forward to it. This year, however, the night took a horrifying turn. The drive to Darren's house is always eerie. The narrow, unkempt country road is surrounded by dense trees, and the darkness is almost suffocating. I usually avoid using my brights, but that night, I had no choice. About halfway there, my headlights illuminated something ahead, a figure standing motionless on the side of the road. It was a woman in a white dress, her back to the trees. She wasn't moving, just standing there, completely still. The dress was inappropriate for the cold weather, and something about her presence felt off. As I passed her, I glanced in my rearview mirror and saw her turn to face me, still frozen in place. My stomach dropped, but I kept driving, telling myself it was just my imagination. The party was fun, as always. We rang in the new year, and I stayed behind to help clean up. By the time I left, it was late, and my car was the only one left in the driveway. As I started the engine, a low tire pressure light came on. I remembered that cold weather often caused this issue with my older car, so I decided to risk the drive home. Big mistake. Not even a few minutes down the dark road, my car came to a dead stop. I got out to inspect the tires and found all four shredded, as if clawed apart by some animal. Panic set in as I realized I was stranded in the middle of nowhere, with no cell service. Then, the silence hit. The wind died, the trees stopped swaying, and even the wildlife went quiet. My heart raced as I heard a twig snap nearby. I turned off my phone flashlight, hoping to blend into the darkness. That's when I heard it, a soft, eerie voice from the trees. "I see you." My blood ran cold. I turned my flashlight back on and aimed it toward the sound. There she was, the woman in the white dress. Her gown was now dirty and stained, her hair disheveled, and her face, grotesque. Half of her jaw seemed to be missing, yet she was grinning at me. I didn't wait to find out what she wanted. I sprinted back toward Darren's house, the sound of her footsteps close behind. I made it to the house and pounded on the door, begging to be let in. Darren's family took me in, and we called the police. The officers searched the area that night, but found nothing. The next morning, Darren's father discovered a rusty knife in the yard, presumably used to slash my tires. The police also checked an abandoned shack I'd passed on the way to the party. They found no one, but the surrounding woods were littered with dead, gutted wildlife. The woman was never found, and to this day, I have no idea who, or what, she was. I still go to Darren's New Year's Eve party every year, but now I always carpool and take the long way home. A creepy taxi ride. When I was 26, I took a trip to San Diego to visit a friend. My return flight landed at midnight, and by the time I got to the ground transportation pickup, it was 12:30 a.m. I waved down a taxi and gave the driver my home address. He offered to take me for $30, which seemed like a good deal. The ride started normally, but things quickly took a creepy turn. The driver kept staring at me through the rearview mirror and made inappropriate comments, like asking if my friend in San Diego was as pretty as me. I tried to brush it off, but his questions became increasingly personal. Then, he missed my exit. I pointed it out, but he apologized and said he'd take the next one. By the time we got off the highway, I was on edge. He continued to flirt, asking if I had a boyfriend and even demanding to know his name. I put in my headphones to shut him out, but I could still feel his eyes on me in the mirror. When we stopped at a red light, I noticed a police car parked nearby. Without thinking, I grabbed my bags, slid the van door open, and bolted toward the officer. The driver yelled after me but didn't chase me. The cop agreed to drive me home, and I was relieved to be out of that situation. But the nightmare wasn't over. The next day, my neighbor George called to say someone claiming to be my dad had tried to get into my apartment. I called my dad, and he confirmed he hadn't been there. That's when I realized the taxi driver had my address. I went home to pack a bag and stay with my parents, but as I was leaving, I heard a voice from down the hallway, "I wasn't going to hurt you." I froze, then bolted out the door, screaming for help. George and his wife came rushing outside, and we called 911. The police arrived and searched my apartment, but the intruder was gone. The back sliding door was open, suggesting he'd fled through the backyard. Unfortunately, I had no record of the taxi ride, so I could only describe the driver and his yellow minivan. I stayed with my parents for a week, and my dad helped me install security cameras and bought me a taser for self-defense. I've since moved to a new apartment, but I still avoid taxis, especially when I'm alone. To this day, I wonder if that driver was even a real taxi driver or if he was someone far more dangerous. Either way, I'm just grateful I made it out of that situation unharmed. New chat.